want to please welcome our moderator on stage. We wrapped up a little bit early, so I just want to make sure, yeah, there I see our friend. So Ted Person is a partner at EQT Ventures, and he's going to introduce the next topic. Thank you very much, Ted, and please give him a warm round of applause. Yes.
Great to be here again. This is my third time at Techsylvania. My name is Ted Person, based in Stockholm. Please have a seat, Vlad. Yes. I just picked up the clicker. I'm based in Stockholm. I'm a designer turned VC. Last year, we invested into a Berlin-based company called Linearity, developer of an app called Vectornator, founded by Vladimir here. Hi, Vladimir. How are you?
Ted, hi. Good. How are you?
I'm
awesome to be here.
And we figured that we would talk a bit about Vlad's journey. Interestingly, you were born in Romania.
Yep, in Bucharest.
In Bucharest. So if we could get the slides up here, we can get going. So the journey of dethroning Adobe, pretty bold statement here. We were talking about decouching Adobe, maybe would be a better term. Maybe a few more words about myself. Ted, 44 years old. I got going with the web back in the mid-90s when it was new. Self-taught developer, discovered design. So design has been a sort of a big part of my life, and since then I've been on this oscillating journey in between founding digital agencies, working with app development, website development, stuff like that, and also startups. So I've been involved in setting up a couple of startups, both in the consumer space and in the B2B space. That's me. I think, 13 years old. I'm pretty impressed with my color matching skills in between those binders in the background and the curtains. I guess my mom did that. So from one kid to another. This is you. You're a bit younger in this picture.
Yes, thinking about how old was I? Yeah, in any case, very young. That's kind of also how everything started. I got into graphic design quite early, with around like 9, 10. Had my own blog with illustrations, and at some point, Apple decided to go out and create the iPhone with Retina display, which then triggered into a kind of like, well, what's actually the best way to create graphics, which are resolution independent, so you don't end up with those blurry illustrations. And in that moment also, I was going to my parents, be like, hey, can you buy me Adobe Illustrator? It's like the only tool where you can create those vector graphics. On the other hand, though, the tool was pretty much, looks very ugly. It's also very hard to use, and it's crazy expensive. So my dad was like, here you have a programming book, just build your own thing, can't be that hard, right?
So you tried, someone got you Illustrator on your sort of family computer, your mom or your dad, I guess, and then you wanted to, that's kind of inspired you to create your own tool. Was it?
Yeah, pretty much.
And so you did, and you told me before that your dad gave you a programming book, and that was Objective-C, which is obviously the development environment or language for Mac. So he kind of gave you the wrong book, and then he had to buy you a Mac as well.
Exactly. So a bit of luck/unluckiness for him.
And what happened next? What do we see here in this picture?
Yeah, so what happened next, I took the challenge literally, thought, okay, well, I can certainly create the way better product, a product that's actually easy to use, where everybody can design and not really have any struggle in terms of how should design work, how should you actually be able to put your thoughts down on a digital screen. So over there, it's like the first version of Vectornator, where my sister, back then maybe like 5-ish, ended up drawing her own kind of like small illustrations. And I think it's like, it was for me at least one of the biggest achievements, because if you would put somebody that's like 5 years old in front of a computer with something like Adobe software, they would just be lost. So it was a great place to actually get feedback from somebody who has not really experienced in terms of understanding how software should work. And if you get software complexity down so much, it's, I think, pretty much demonstrates that you can get everybody on board, no matter what experience level they have.
So first, when I saw this picture, I thought this was your hand because you were so young in that other picture. But this is your sister's hand.
Yeah.
But how old were you when you developed the first version of Vectornator?
So I think the first version working was like 2014, 15-ish. It's probably like 14, 15 years old.
14, 15. And then you launched it, put it into the App Store. Did you do all this yourself, or did you get help from someone?
Yeah, like YouTube and Wikipedia as well as GitHub is a huge help, just because that one kind of opens up the world of programming for everybody. You don't need to go to school to actually get to understand how programming should work. I think also it's quite logical and easy to understand once you have examples. So those are kind of like the biggest open books you can get.
And one of the things we're discussing the most in the board of Linearity or Vectornator right now is monetization. Right now, Vectornator is a free tool, but what we see here is a paid version of Vectornator or Vectornator Pro, a pretty expensive tool as well. So did you charge from the beginning, or what was the thinking there?
Yeah, so I founded the company, put Vectornator on the App Store without actually thinking about it. So pretty much just like dump it on the store and then see what happens. I mean, a couple of apps like Flappy Birds worked anyway, so it's like, why shouldn't this work? And the funny thing is, once we put Vectornator on the store, we actually, without marketing, ended up topping the charts almost globally on productivity. And here, this was the US App Store in 2017. We're like number 3 most downloaded paid apps, which equal to like 40,000 in revenue overnight without doing anything, which is quite impressive.
How old were you then?
17.
So 40K straight into your 17-year-old version of yourself's bank account.
Yes, just that because you can't found a company with 17. Technically, my mom was CEO and founder of the company, but
okay, so it's your mom's company. What did your parents say when you got 40K? Or I guess you got more than 40K, but like.
Actually, they still thought you have to finish school, otherwise you're not getting the company. So my mom kind of ended up.
She still had hopes that you would become a doctor or something like that, maybe.
Exactly. Go to university, then do an internship.
Then you can start a company. Okay. So that was the first version, and then what do we have here? Vectornator Pro. It looks a bit different from today.
Yes. So what happened then is we got a lot of feedback in from people that were super excited about the future of design and actually being able to take their devices anywhere and design what they think. So you use the feedback to actually iteratively get to the version we see above. Yet one thing really bothered me quite a bit, which was it still looks a lot like desktop software, and it doesn't feel natural to actually design a desktop environment on a tablet where you actually have fingers. You can actually design with a pencil. You don't have to deal with a mouse. So we were thinking about, hey, how can we actually take this deeper and pretty much literally dethrone Adobe in the next kind of 5 to 10 years, especially in the vector design aspect of the ecosystem. And with that, kind of was also clear you can't beat Adobe with 40K in revenue overnight, so you actually need to get there faster, which led to taking the venture capital route. So we raised the first round, or first real round, 2018. That was kind of me signing the investment contracts.
So when did you decide to build a large company? Or I mean, how many are you now? You're 70 people?
Yeah, almost.
70 people based in Berlin. But when did you decide to do this for real? Was that back in 2018 or even before that?
Yeah, I think it was quite early on, generally, that I always felt like there's a huge lag in the market for actually cool creative software that just works the way people want it to work. However, it wasn't really clear how to get there. So that's something that we figured out over the way, and I think now we have a quite clear path in terms of how do we get there. But yeah.
And how did you get the first funding? Was that still just you, or have you hired more people already back then?
I think at that point we were like 5 to 6 people,
Yeah.
most engineers.
You look like a businessman in that picture, like a real CEO. That's good. You reverted back, looking more like a sort of a creative or a programmer or something now. Okay, so that was 2018. How big was the first fundraise?
5 million.
That was the first one? No angels,
Well, I mean the
nothing
first
before?
VC one. Before we raised like 400,000 roughly from angels.
Yeah, cool. And on the next picture, we have a couple of parrots. What is this?
Yeah, so that was actually the first prototype we had in terms of rethinking the way design should work on a touchscreen.
Yeah.
Which then kind of over the progress led to really setting up a new foundation for in terms of mobile first design tools that then everybody tries to kind of adopt in their own way.
So you were born on the iPad and on the iPhone later, and now you're also on Mac? Is
Yes.
Is this the Mac version?
Oh, it's actually the release version, so the one before was just a prototype.
Okay.
And then over the course of 1 year, we actually figured out how to actually make it really user-friendly. And I think if you look at this compared to Illustrator, it's kind of a totally different vibe in terms of really making things easy.
And what is this?
Yeah, then in 2019, we actually also went to the Mac. Just feels natural to be able to actually design anywhere you go.
Beautiful. And let's talk a bit about Vectornator today. I think, by the way, on the next slide, I think we have a video for the latest version of Vectornator. Let's see if that works. We've converted this. Oh.
Give me your attention, please. I'll make your head spin just for me. See me dressing to the nines. Yeah, you looking at what's mine. If you wanna get in line, I don't follow, I define. Feels so good, and it feels so right. I take it there, I'm lighting up the night. I'm for real, see the way you stare. Watch me, watch me, watch me work my flair. I take it there. I take it there. Watch me, watch me. I take it there.
Beautiful. Very cool. So let's talk about Vectornator today. You said you're 70 people. You're based in Berlin. What else? How many engineers? How many designers?
Yeah, so we're pretty much did a lot of product and tech from the team size. We just kicked off, I guess, a bit of marketing, which is mostly still based on content.
Yeah.
And we still have a lot of homework to do in terms of products, so it's still in the early shoes, and I think what's coming out next year is really like the pinnacle of changing design.
Cool. And I happen to know that you're obviously taking on kind of Illustrator in the Western world, but I know that China is also an interesting sort of growth market for you because Illustrator is not very, or Adobe is not very strong in China. Any words on that?
Yeah, so it's super interesting because if you think about the Asian market, it's kind of like they skipped the desktop phase. They all went mobile first from the beginning. However, then if you look at the market itself, or generally what's actually accessible to them, there are no real design companies out there. So what ends up happening is people trying to kind of get their hands on desktop class software, which then isn't available, so they kind of try to crack it, or they kind of like look for other solutions. Maybe end up using something like CorelDRAW, which is also very archaic, didn't get updated for a long time. So it's just a completely open market. And
I loved CorelDRAW when I was like 15. It's cool on my PC, my Windows computer.
Yeah, but I guess nowadays it's not really.
I don't use it that much anymore. No.
Exactly.
You've also become one of sort of Apple's favorite companies in the ecosystem, since Apple is targeting creative professionals. There's a picture of Tim Cook. I love that they're using WebEx, Cisco WebEx meetings.
Yes,
very modern.
WebEx.
What about this? You were just at WWDC, so you have a pretty close kind of partnership with with Apple? I mean, you chose Apple's ecosystem pretty early on, or your dad chose Apple's ecosystem when he bought you the wrong book. Any thoughts on, or any words on your relationship with Apple?
Yeah, I mean, they're literally creating one of the best products, and I think if you look at the Apple ecosystem as a whole, creatives love the ecosystem, and I think there's just not enough, or at least never really was, clear Apple-grade professional software out there that is actually accessible to everybody. I mean, if you look at Adobe, it looks kind of like a web-ish thing that got stuck 20 years ago. And it's pretty much just lacking the real kind of Apple native design ecosystem that also kind of, especially once you look at mobile, it's even less in the market. So,
what do we see in this picture? We have the guy with the nickname Air Force One in the bottom left corner.
Yes. So what is pretty much there is Vectornator behind of Air Force One, also Vectornator on the iMac page, on social media, so it's pretty much everywhere. And I guess this trend will only continue.
And do you, by the way, talk about like traction, like how many people use Vector? Are you public about that, or that's stuff you keep to yourself?
I guess what I can say is that we have almost 500,000 users using Vectornator in their workflows.
That's cool. This slide I know nothing about. It says future, and there is some abstract animation here. Anything to anything to add to this weird slide?
I think what I can say is, if you're into animations or kind of like creating such motion graphics which are not really displayed there, you should definitely follow us on social media and make sure to check us out next year. There's something really cool happening.
Beautiful. And any reflections on, I mean, you're in Romania. I think it's your first time here in Cluj, right?
Yes, yeah, in Cluj. Yeah.
Any reflections on the journey so far? How old were you when you left Romania to Berlin or to Germany?
To Germany, I think it was like 4, right in the middle of kindergarten. Was quite funny because then I literally went to Germany, didn't speak any German, so I kind of had to learn German during kindergarten. And now I'm kind of back to Romania and actually try to speak to some people in Romanian. Everybody answers in English. I'm like, yeah, thank you for talking to me in Romanian.
So what you're saying, that when you're walking around here this afternoon, you want people to approach you in Romanian, not in German or in English. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, wouldn't harm.
Beautiful. Do you have team members in Romania right now?
Yes, we have one in Bucharest. We also have one that she's from Romania, and actually I think she's even in Romania right now, but she's also living in Berlin.
Cool. Any asks? Are you recruiting? Do you want people from this ecosystem to apply for any specific roles you're recruiting for?
Yes, so we're actually looking for collaboration engineers, and also, of course, always engineering. It's always a bottleneck, so we're always hiring.
Beautiful. Let's talk a bit about your sort of ambition of becoming sort of one of the leading design tools. Like Adobe has been around since, I don't know, the 80s with Photoshop, and Illustrator was launched in '87, I think. You have new entrants like Figma entering this design market. What's your future outlook of design tools?
Yes, so I think with Adobe, I mean, it's kind of spectacular that they're still around if you think about their core Creative Cloud business. On the other hand, they did achieve the bundle effect with the entire Creative Cloud that is kind of out in the market and has a very strong value. But I think at the end, if you look at all the newcomers like Figma, it's just a matter of time until everybody takes their piece out of the Adobe ecosystem. Figma, obviously, product design is kind of now with them. Then the marketing aspect of Adobe is where we're heading. So it becomes a big question to me, where's actually like Adobe's role in the ecosystem. Then if you look at a lot of individual products, for instance, Pixelmator or Procreate are certainly way better than any other Adobe offerings in that silos. So it's kind of a question like when with Adobe just generally start to really lose in that aspect. And
any thoughts about? I mean, you chose the Apple ecosystem early on, starting with the iPad, and you have an iPhone version, and now a Mac version. It's a very specific bet to go into the Apple ecosystem versus the web ecosystem. Obviously, you have like native support for the iPad and pencil support and all that. But how are you thinking about platforms moving forward?
I think there are advantages and disadvantages. One, obviously, if you're in the Apple ecosystem, you have a lot of support from Apple, especially if you have a really great product. But then I think also platforms in general as a whole in the future will become less and less relevant. And it's just a matter of what use case do you have and what kind of platform is the best for that use case. So, yeah, I guess things will change in the future quite a bit.
Makes sense. Soon we have AR and VR headsets coming out from Apple. Will we ever see a Vectornator in VR? We'll see. Okay, final slide, back to the two of us. Any pieces of advice? If you're about to start a company, you might be based here or you might be based somewhere else in Romania. Like, how should one think to sort of get going?
I think pretty much get the best advisors on board that can help you the most. Don't try to learn everything from zero. It takes a lot of time, which nobody has. So pretty much those two.
What's the biggest mistake that you have done?
Ooh.
It's tough to just throw this question out there without without rehearsing at all.
Yeah, I would have to think about it.
You mentioned before yesterday when we went for drinks that initially when you were looking for investors, you wanted to get an investment from like someone who was very well known, someone who was like on Shark Tank on TV or something like that. I found that kind of funny as like a young entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you've been in the venture capital world for a while, you certainly know a lot of things better than if you're new. So that then I guess goes back to again like having the right advisory network from the beginning, and really try to be taken by hand in the first kind of couple of months or even years or even longer, and not try to figure everything out from zero, which then is kind of like why figure it out if there are other people who figured it out before and you don't need to start from zero, I guess.
Makes sense. I think that was my last question. So with that, a big thank you for this. Thanks for listening.